Sanatan Samstha, which is there in Goa, who are supposed to be protectors of Hinduism. If this religion needs to be protected from people like us, just imagine what sort of a religion it is. Yes.
So you share your name with Swami Vivekanand, a man who spread the message of Hinduism across the world. So what pushed you towards atheism?
Yeah. See, that I was given the name of Swami Vivekananda was not a matter under my control. It was, the name was given to me by the Swami of Ramakrishna Ashram, who was near our home where I'm sitting now. And he said, one day this baby will become something like Vivekananda. But I got neither Viveka nor Ananda. I'm just what I am. I'm just, I should say I was, of course everybody is born an atheist. And you get converted to this sort of belief system which your society, which your parents believe in. And then you come back to the original default setting. That's why I call myself as a twice born atheist. It was not from any external sources. I should say, usually you become an atheist because some stimulus comes from an external source. But this was an internal reaction to circumstances which were beyond my control, as I should say. So I came to that conclusion at a very young age, say at around the age of 10 or 11 years. And it was not an overnight revolution. It was an evolutionary process. Gradually, I got the evidence that there is no supernatural power, and one day learned to totally reject it. That too through experimentation, not just like that. I experimented with it because the supernatural power has got some power, right? And it can do anything, right? That's how your brain was right from the childhood. So I was praying to this supernatural power for justice, to set right things that my father was doing. But I discovered that nothing was happening. So I thought probably there is nothing like this that exists. And I tried experimentation also. Because generally, you know, these gods, I am using the plural, are supposed to help you during difficult times. And what can it be for a child? An exam, right? So my mother used to tell me, you pray to God before you go for the exam. So I used to pray. So one day I thought, and I was a good student. I thought, let me do an experiment. I didn't pray and went. Still, I got good marks. Then I thought, now let me try another experiment. When the next exam came, I prayed to this God. Hey, God failed me in the exam. Yet I got good marks. So when the next exam came and my mother said, pray to God, I said, I'm not praying. She said, why? I said, God is nonsense. There's no God. You know what she told me? An Orthodox woman born in a Gauda Saraswat Brahmin family. That is the caste of my parents. And this woman tells me, oh my child, you found the truth at such a young age. Just imagine that. So my mother was a closet atheist. Probably she did not have the courage to express her views because she was afraid of what the society may think. And she was totally dependent on her husband, and she had 4 small kids to look after and all that. So that is how I became an atheist. And I'll tell you, atheism is only a conclusion. No God, fine, no supernatural power, right? So that conclusion I came to at the age of 11 years.
So there's this belief that religion probably is not all bad, but it is the godmen who abuse it. Do you subscribe to this view?
Can you separate superstition from religion? Can you separate the so-called miracles associated with the people who founded or who are claimed to have founded such religions? Probably there are exceptions like Buddhism, in which Buddha says, go by your reasoning. And Jainism, where Mahavir says you go by ethics. But otherwise, religions are all dogmas created by the following of the person who founded it, or a collection of such things in the primitive tribal religions, or something undefined as what goes in the name of Hinduism. Because Hinduism, strictly speaking, is not a religion. It's a set of practices brought in from a long, long time. Of course, we'll go into that later. So how can I separate that? But the so-called godmen are a phenomenon which sometimes transcends these religions. They say, I'm Ram, Rahim, Insan, something. Another man puts a cross, a moon, and a swastika and says, oh, I'm a combination, I'm a synthesis of all this. Or somebody like the modern man, Jaggi Vasudev, who says, I'm above our religion in his fake accent. And then we have people like the double mister, who says that he goes by meditation and his so-called prayers or his singing has got the names of the deities of worship by all the religions. So it's not a very simple process. It's a complicated process. But one thing is that all of them stand on superstition, unquestioning belief, and a dogma. So these are irrefutable to most of the religions.
How do you define a rationalist?
Yeah, it's a person who applies the power of reasoning to his life, to the extent possible, that also I should say. Because, see, atheism is a conclusion. Rationalism is a method of investigation, rather I should say, putting things to the test of reason. Humanism is one step above that. First, I was an atheist. Maybe at the age of around 18, 20, I became a rationalist. And maybe at the age of 35 or so, I saw what humanism is. And I thought, hey, this is what I was all the time. Because a humanist believes that all human beings are equal, regardless of their nationality, gender, ethnicity, lack of a belief system or a belief system, and we hold that everyone has got a right to happiness. See, we all live for our own happiness. Just take a look at that. If you look deeply, even if you see a person sacrificing something, that person sacrifices something because it makes him or her happy to do it. So every human being is in search of happiness. And that is the quest of a humanist. Provided your search for happiness doesn't infringe over the human rights of others. Well, I can say I'll be happy if I put my music system at full blast at midnight. Right? And that may be my concept of happiness. Or chopping off some fellow's limb. But that cannot be, because that will infringe over the human rights of others. So that is how I look at it. I'm a humanist, basically.
So when did you decide to become a full-time anti-superstition activist? I think you can be a little louder if possible.
Yeah. I decided long back in 1978 when I joined the service only, I decided that I will quit my job when I reached the age of retirement and devote all my time for the movement. And I was doing it, quite a bit of it. Most of the times I was going around the country, touring, and in the middle I used to take a few classes, do my research work, guide my PG students, do my examination work. That's what all my colleagues were saying. This is what you are doing. So in 2004, when I saw a really tragic incident of a child being sacrificed in a place called, in a district called Gulbarga, which is at the northeastern corner of Karnataka. and that the villagers knew that this child had been kidnapped to be sacrificed, but they did nothing. They did not even lift a finger to save the child. Of course, after they discovered the body, they attacked the house of the people who sacrificed and all that. But till then, they did not do anything because they were afraid that these people have supernatural powers. So that was the time when I decided, well, my teaching and all my other work is interfering too much with this activity. So let me get rid of it. So I thought I'll quit. So I went to the head of the institution and told him I'm quitting. He said, you are a good teacher, your students like you. I said, yeah, that they may, but my country needs me more. My people need me more. So I'm going to quit and devote all my time for the movement. He said, at least exhaust your leave and go. So it took me 2 years to exhaust my leave. And in 2006, I quit to devote all my time for the movement so that my teaching and my other work does not interfere with what I want to do in life. That is, improve the way of thinking of my fellow citizens, whether in this country or elsewhere. So that's how I did it. And economic independence I had been striving for. Yeah, sorry.
No, please continue.
Yeah, and economic independence I had planned for from a long, long time, right from the time I joined for service. So economically also, there was no question of any suffering. Besides, I have no dependents. My wife is quite independent. We do not have any biological children. So we have absolutely no commitments except to each other and to the causes.
Can you share some stories of exposing God-men? You have quite a few of them by now.
See, I think you're asking me a very, very difficult question. Now let's come back to the point that how do you expose God-men? One way would be you go to the place where they do their so-called miracles and point your finger and say, what you are doing is nonsense. But if you do it, probably your finger, your hand, your head will be chopped off and the rest of you will be made into keema and fed to probably dogs or crocodiles or whatever animal that is nearby. So how do you go about it is the question. What you do is you take a look at how they do it and do it yourself. And then try to convince others that what he does is the same as what I do. That's how I started, waving my hand in the air and giving vibhuti, keeping burning camphor on my tongue, walking on coals. Besides, why do you need to do these things is another question that's asked. What if he gives vibhuti? Why do you want to give vibhuti? I want my people to think rationally. So we go among the people and tell them, well, boss, ये सब हो रहा है, कुछ सोच लो भाई, किसी भी चीज को मानने से पहले कुछ सोच विचार करो. So the first thing they will ask you, how did this universe come? I'll say Big Bang Theory. Explain. Okay, explain, blah, 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 blah. How did life come? Evolution, Vikaswad. Then they will come to it. ये सब ठीक है भाई, लेकिन हमारे बगल वाली गली में in the next street there is a Baba who dips his hands into boiling oil and nothing happens to him. How do you explain that? Well, you tell them it is this way that is done and it's that way that is done. You know what that man does? Or that woman or the child turns around and asks you, if it is all that easy, bhai, khud karke dikhao. That is why I learned to do these things. That is how we better these godmen, challenging them, doing their so-called miracles, telling the people before you believe, apply your reasoning to it, and only if it comes true, then only accept it. So this is what, not mine, this is what Gautam Buddha said in this country 2,500 years back. This is what Charvaka said. This is what the Lokayats said. So questioning is nothing new to this country or to our people. It has existed from time immemorial in this country. So let not people tell us that you were taught to question by the missionaries or by the Islamists or somebody like that. No, questioning is as much a part of the ethos of this land as well as anywhere else. So this is how we started this. So how do you do it? One is demonstration. Second is explanation. Third is challenging them. Well, somebody says astrology. By astrology, I can tell you everything about yourself here. I said, come on, bhai, tell me. Here is my horoscope. I showed it to one man like that. He was not a god man, but he was sort of a mature horoscope reader. He was brought by another friend of mine. Because you know one thing, there are a lot of people around who think that they can easily convince me. They tell us, you are named after Vivekananda, but you have not met your Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. I think this man will be a Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. So this was about, I think, 45 years back. One man told me, you are named after Vivekananda. And Vivekananda got Vivek after meeting Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. I know a man who will put Vivek into your mind. I said, how? I said, many people have tried. I said, no, this man will convince you that astrology is 100% correct. Then you can go into other things. Because just like we convince people by doing the so-called miracles, the so-called believers, they also try to convince us through things like this, through manifestation of the supernatural. So he brought one man. Because they told me tomorrow I'll bring him, get your horoscope ready. I brought my horoscope and gave it to that man. That man looked at it and said, this is the horoscope of a very educated person, at least a postgraduate and doing his doctorate. Good. Then he said he comes from a very rich family, but all their money is tied in litigation. I said, good. Then he said, what is your problem? I gave him my problems. He suggested solutions. Then at the end of it, I asked him, you have told things very correctly about me. How did you come to these conclusions? So he pointed out in my horoscope, see, this planet in this house means highly educated. This planet in this house means family is rich. This means this. And he explained it very nicely. I told him, you have given me a wonderful explanation about what I am. But unfortunately, that horoscope is not mine. It was somebody else's, was very near my age. And he had left school in 7th standard. And his family had absolutely nothing. And he had shivering of the hand. So he was taken to some far off place where he was given a job in a hotel just to serve water. Because if water spills, not much objection will be there. But if you ask him to serve something else and if that spills, it will be lost for the owner. So it was such a man's horoscope. When I told him, this man was flabbergasted. Then I told the man who had brought him to convince me, you have brought a very poor example of Ramakrishna Paramahamsa here. So like that it goes on. Why one? There are so many of them whom I challenge. There are scams going on. The scams sometimes not by individuals, but by groups. Groups do these scams. This Satya Sai Baba, Satyanarayana Raju is his actual name, of Puttaparthi, who was #1 in the hierarchy of these godmen for quite some time. His speciality was taking out Shivalingam, giving vibhuti, producing chains from thin air and things like that. Every one of them we can do and convince people. If you go through my videos on the YouTube, you'll find a lot of them. In fact, BBC made a documentary called as The Secret Swami. In that, I performed all these so-called miracles of Sai Baba. And I challenged him. This challenge came as a one-page article in a newspaper, in a magazine called as Sunday, published from Calcutta in those days. And after a year or so, the magazine wound up. I do not know whether his miraculous powers caused it to wind up or something else. But anyway, that magazine wound up. And those challenges were very simple. Why do you want the vibhuti or something? Just wave your hand in the air and give me a kaddu, a pumpkin of this size. But nobody will do it, because everybody who produces something from thin air produces only things that can be held in one closed fist, nothing bigger. In one particular program, P.C. Sarkar, the famous musician, P.C. Sarkar Jr. and I were on the same panel discussion in NDTV, and I waved my hand like this and produced the change. He said, "Oh, how is that done?" Of course, he knew that as a magician, but he was just looking at me and saying, "Of course, I know about you, sir." Anyway, coming back to the point, these so-called godmen, they claim to have supernatural powers, right? What are those powers? Powers of premonition, extrasensory perception. So I said, you have got the power of prediction, right? I do not want you to predict anything big. I will keep an envelope right under your nose, Baba. Through your supernatural powers, you predict when that seal is broken and it is opened, what will emerge from it and its identification mark. Say, I will put a currency note and its identification mark will be a number, right? The serial number of the note, not the denomination. So I said, well, do it and take all my property. So far, not a single astrologer, not a single godman, not a single clairvoyant, not a single one with extrasensory perception has come forward to take that challenge. Somebody even asked, how much is your property? I said, well, pay me 5,000 rupees. Pay my chartered accountant, not me. And I will authorize him to give you an audited balance sheet or a statement of assets and liabilities, and then you can decide. But if you are going to do that, you have to keep a deposit of 5% of my worth. And if you can win the challenge, your deposit will be given back to you with all my property. Otherwise, your deposit is forfeited. Otherwise, I gave another example. I said, you can take a certain amount, say 10 lakhs. Keep 5% of that as deposit. And if you succeed, you will get the 10 lakhs. And along with your deposit. Otherwise, this challenge I had put forward in Chhattisgarh, Raipur. I think around 5 years back, I had a training program there. There was a Baba there called as Pandohar Baba or Khandohar Baba or something like that. I forgot his exact name. I had a training program, a 5-day workshop. We conduct these workshops to train people how to do these so-called godman tricks. Because the best way to expose godmen is do their tricks, right? We had a training program actually sponsored by the government of India for that. Of course, this was not sponsored by government of India. It was sponsored by some individuals there. And in this, somebody asked me, हमारे त्रिकाल ज्ञानी बाबा है. I said, बहुत अच्छी बात है. त्रिकाल ज्ञानी is very good. So he knows what is going to happen, past, present, future. I said, okay. Then he said, उनसे क्या आपको कुछ आपकी challenge है क्या? I said, yes, है. I said, क्या challenge है? I said, I will put a currency note into an envelope and then I will seal it. The Baba can just tell the number of the note and then we'll write it down somewhere, probably on a big blackboard, and then we'll open the envelope. If his number is correct, I will give him 10 lakhs. And that, I think some reporter or some newspaper was there. Next day, there is one newspaper there called as Harit Bhumi. That Harit Bhumi carries on its front page Khandohar Baba or Pandokar Baba को नरेंद्र नायक की चुनौती. नोट का नंबर बताओ और 10 लाख ले लो. And the next day, the same paper carries a headline, statement of that Baba. दरबार में आओ और सब कुछ बता देंगे पंडोकर बाबा. And the day after that, a gang of his people come into my training program and tell me आपने हमारे बाबा का अपमान किया है। ऐसा क्या अपमान किया है? उधर पूछा है ना, वो कर लो भाई। That day was a Sunday and my training program was full of some 250 people, many of them young men. So this gang could not do much, they walked away. The next day was a working day, that was the last day of my workshop, and there are only 50 people. Then another big gang of this man's followers come. They come and try to attack me. When they were trying to do it, there were some 5 or 6 women in my workshop. Very tough ones. They said, "Aap jaiye sir, you go." I said, "मैं क्यों जाऊँ?" Said, "आप जाइए अभी." They told those fellows, क्या है, तुम्हारे बाबत निकल गया नहीं है ना, स्विस बैंक का अकाउंट नंबर बताने को बोल उनसे. They attacked them so much that those fellows ran away. And last time I went to Raipur, which was this year itself, before all these things started, that Baba is behind bars. Not because of me, but because of something else. Well, as I just think about it, I get reminded of this because of so many of these incidents which have happened off and on, that suddenly you remember something. That's why I told you, you don't give me any questions. You just keep on asking. You know, there is something called as Nadi Jyotidam in Tamil Nadu, which is very, very famous. They call it as Agasthyar Nadi Jyotidam. You can just Google it and check. For quite some time, when you Google Nadi Jyotidam, my write-up would come. Because the exposure I made, I gave a fancy title to it. I said the exact science of Nadi Jyotidam and put an exclamation mark. So Google was showing it as if it is something supporting it. But actually it was an exposure of that. They said it is so accurate that there are leaves written for every single individual born on this earth. And when you go there, they will search for the leaves. And if your leaf is found out, they will tell everything about you very, very correctly, 100% correctly. And that write-up of mine you can see on nirmukta.com. It is still getting reaction. It was written 10 years back. There are some hundreds of reactions to it because people supporting me and the others and all that. Anyway, I went there. The Baba there is a Jyotish. He said, "This is not a shop. This is a temple," in Tamil. I said, "Okay, Baba, namaste." Then he said, "Give your date of birth. Nothing else, just your date of birth and your fingerprint. We will search for your leaf. If your leaf is available, we will bring it. Otherwise, no." I gave my thumbprint and I gave my date of birth. They said, "Sit here." I said, "No, I'll take a look at this temple. This is in a place called Kumbakonam, near Madras. It's a very famous place where there's a temple called as Vaitishwaran Kovil, which is supposed to be the god of health. And if you go there with health problems, they'll find some way of correcting them." So I said, no, we'll go for a round and come. But when I came back, they said, "Your leaf has been found." I said, "Okay." Then they started asking me questions. "Your name starts with A?" I said, "No." "Starts with B?" I said, "No." "C?" "No." "D?" "No." Then he came to Zad. I said, "Yes, Zad." Then he said, "You are a Muslim." I said, "Yes, very correct." Then he said, "You have 2 wives." Then he asked from where I am. I said, "I'm from Udupi. This is a place north of Mangalore." Then he said, "You have got 2 wives." I said, "Partly correct." He said, "Why?" I said, "I married for the second time after my first wife died." He said, see. And he went on talking nonsense. I went on saying, yes. He said, "You're retired from government service." I said, "Yes," because he could make out that from my age. And I know, they ask you leading questions and try to get the answers from you. And I misled him throughout. When he had finished with it, he spoke for nearly 45 minutes in Tamil. Of course, there was a translator. He said, "Do you need a translator?" I said, "I'm fluent in 9 languages. I don't need your translator. You can tell me in Tamil itself. And when it was all over, I said, you said I'm a Muslim. You said I've got 2 wives. You talked all nonsense. You said this is for believers, or only those who believe in it. I said, have you ever seen your nadi, that means your leaves? He said, no. I said, before seeing anybody else's leaves, you should have seen yours. Because if you had seen yours in that, it would have been written that today somebody is going to come to test you and is going to tell all lies. And you have to expose him. That fellow got so angry, he put the leaves under his armpit and walked out. Walked out of where? Out of his own shop. We sat there for 10 minutes. Fellow has walked out, not coming back. Then we too walked out. And I have not paid him also. Second time we went to that place was when Australian TV was shooting a documentary. This time we went and told him a story that the Australian TV producer was a textile man who had come to India. And I am from Mangalore, I said from Karnataka, I am a tourist guide. I put a big nama and dress befitting of a devotee and all that. And then I taken a horoscope also this time. That fellow asked, do you have a horoscope? It is easier to search for your leaf if you have a horoscope. I showed him a horoscope. He went, brought some leaves, and then he brought the leaves of the producer also, the other man, the Gora. And then we were in separate chambers. This man tells me that the owner of the horoscope has got a long life. And it was my sister-in-law's husband who had died a few months back. And he went on telling all nonsense about him. I said, yes, 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 yes. Then I came out. Because the Australian TV producer had said, you should not do anything to expose them. You can just listen to what he says and come out. You know how this racket runs. It's not just telling you about yourself. When you come out, there are touts, there are pimps waiting there. And this man had told me that I was a coolie in a zamindar's place and I had jumped into a well and committed suicide in my past life. But for the Australian TV producer, he was a Gora, right? He can't give him such lowly things. So he told him he was the courtier in the palace of a king in Sri Lanka in his past life. So anyway, when I came out, there were people waiting there. They said, where did you? I said, I went to this one. They said, what did he tell you? I said, he told me that it is like this and I have to do some pujas for my past lives. They said, see, if you pay here, you know, the government controls these temples. They've got a counter where you can pay and get the pujas done. That if you pay here and do these pujas, they won't do it properly. They'll charge you more. We will do it for less. And we'll assure you that we'll send you the prasads. You don't have to worry. So the whole thing is a racket to take people for a ride. So I exposed that. I put that also on that Nirmukta site. And that also has got hundreds of reactions. So you do not expose a single man, but you expose a system. Because these godmen said, the so-called godmen, the so-called Nadi Jyotidars, they say everybody's leaf is there. And every morning they go to the temple, it seems, to bring the leaves. See the stories. And the temple, the deity knows who is going to come to their place. Because if you ask a question saying that do you have leaves for that 1.3 billion population of the country or the 7 billion population of the world, they'll say, no, 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 no. The temple has. When we go to the temple every morning, the deity there knows who is going to come to us today and they give us the leaves. Sometimes there can be small transcription mistakes. So your leaf may not be there. And if your leaf is not there, we tell you it is not there. So this is the sort of way they take you for a ride. And this is how our people fall into such traps. But these people are very good at what we call as cold reading. They just don't read your horoscope. They don't read your palm. They don't read your leaves. They read your body. They read your body signals. They read your reactions to what they say. And that's how they tell you correctly about yourself. And of course, future, anybody can say anything about anybody. And whether it comes out right or not, you don't know. Right? Because future is a closed book, you do not know. Past, they take it from your own body language. Right.
So why do even the so-called educated people, including scientists, fall for these traps?
Because of compartmentalization. You say educated. I do not say educated. I say literate. Somebody may be literate in physics, say astrophysics, or in medicine, or some branch of engineering, or say biochemistry, my subject. But that person happens to be as ignorant, as gullible as the man who is not even literate. Because our education is mainly making you literate in a subject, not making you think, not teaching you logic, not teaching you reasoning, not teaching you scientific temperament. Our education system teaches you a subject. That's all. That is why you see a scientist going after such superstition. See, I have given talks in some of the top institutions of science, something like INTEC, something like the molecular biology laboratories in Bangalore, Indian Institute of Science in Bangalore, then Indian Institute of Technologies. And even in those places, you find people who are as superstitious as elsewhere. And probably they try to rationalize their superstitions better than the illiterate man. Because there was a professor arguing with me in Indian Institute of Technology in Madras that homeopathy works. And that man said, if it is because of the placebo effect, how does it work in animals? As if homeopathy works in animals. You ask an homeopath that, they say, no, no, no. Ours is only for the human being, that too for intact humans. And this was a professor in IIT Madras. And another man comes on the stage and tells me, I went to Puttaparthi and the Baba showed me his empty hand. He waved it like this and produced a ring. I show him my empty hand, wave it like this and give him a coin. He says, what you do is magic, what my Baba does is miracle. What better explanation can you have than that? Nothing else, right? Again, you can say that it works only for people who believe in it. I said you need not believe in Carl Benz or in Rudolf Diesel if you are going to sit in an automobile. You need not believe in Henry Ford or you to drive a car. You need not believe in Alexander Fleming or the antibiotic to work on you. But only here they demand belief. So many times it is the faith that is demanded of you. If I tell you 2 plus 2 is 4, I say, hey, 2 plus 2 is 4, yeah. What is your problem? But if I want to convince you that 2 plus 2 is 5, I say, believe me. Why don't you believe me? 2 plus 2 is 5. So that is how people do it. And just talk about the credentials. I went to a place where hardware is developed for ISRO in Chandigarh. I had a workshop there. And one of the trainees, her husband was a scientist working there. She told her husband about me and he invited me to his place. And there were around, I think, 100 people there. When I started my talk, I told them, I'm very glad to come to a place where the replica of the satellite is put into the hundi of a temple in Tirupati. I'm glad to come to a place where pujas are done before you feed your satellites to the fish. They applauded. I said, not all of them, but many of them. Anyway, they applauded. I said, I'm criticizing the top man and you are applauding me. I said, yes. Why not? If prayers could do anything, what was the need for us to be there? What is the need for us to work? So people like that who question are there everywhere. but they're not given an opportunity. During that episode only, I remember another thing. There is an astrologer called as Khurrana. Listen, not Khurana, but Khurrana. Khurrana. And his son is an actor by this very same surname. I forgot his name because I hardly see more. But they say he's a very famous actor. This happened, I think, around 10 years back. This man, it was announced in the newspaper that Khurrana is going to speak about astrology and medicine in the Postgraduate Institute of Medical Sciences. Imagine, in Chandigarh. We did not know whether the function was open to the public, but some newspapers asked me. I said, if public are allowed, I'm going to go there. So I went there. This Khurrana was introduced. He charges some 5,000 rupees per minute. I think you can check his website. I forgot his first name. And this man talks all rubbish. Then they said, you can ask questions. One of the professors got up there and said, since you have come here, what we shall do is, we shall ask for a horoscope to be made for every child as soon as it is born and be shown to you, so that you can tell us which disease the child will get at which age, and you can also tell us what to give it to the child. So we will not have any problems here. It was so sarcastic. Then another professor of pharmacology got up and said, well, to my department I invited 10 astrologers and gave them horoscopes and 20 horoscopes, and I told them, just select the ones of the patients and ones of the normal people. And I called 10 ordinary people to select. There was no difference between the selection of either of them. Then the president of the Non-Teaching Staff Association got up and said, see, henceforward in the OPD, we'll have an astrologer sitting. As soon as the patients come in, the horoscope can be shown, so that a lot of money on diagnostic tests, all these scans and all can be saved. Then another professor got up and said, well, you advise us how to speak to patients. You are advising us doctors. We are taught right from first MBBS how to talk to patients. And you, who think you are an astrologer and you think you can tell about patients, you are telling us how to break news to patients. That man had come with the confidence that he would not be asked any questions because he was a guest of the director. But it happened that the director was not the most senior man there. There were people even more senior to him who were sitting in the audience, even more senior professors, and they did not care a damn for the director, because anyway the director will change after some time. And some of them had been directors too, because it's a rotational post. And then it came to the turn of the public. So I got up and said, well, I'm from the same profession, but I'm public here. So please, I told the director, Mr. Director, this man says that he can tell the carrier what people should go on the horoscope. So what you should do is, next time onward, do not have PG entrance exams. You give the horoscopes of all the students to this man and let him select who is fit for his specialization. And also let him do a further deeper study and let him also determine who will qualify and get the degree, so you can give them the degree too. Then I asked him, you had predicted that this UPA government will fall, but it has not fallen so far. No, that was before this government fell. Of course, he can say that now that I predicted that it will fall in 2014, but at that time it was still in power. So this was another man whom we exposed. You can check on the web, it is there. So these so-called famous astrologers, B.V. Raman was another man whom I challenged. One of the most famous astrologers who used to write a magazine called as the Astrologers Magazine. I told him, I will give you 10 horoscopes. Say who is male, who is female, who is dead, who is alive. If 18 answers out of 20 are correct, I will give you 1 lakh. At that time, I did not have much money. This happened around 30 years back. And just about a decade back, another astrologer took the challenge. And he said, I'll take the challenge. I said, good. He thought that the statistical probability is 50-50. When I give him 10 horoscopes and ask him to predict who is dead, who is alive, who is male, who is female, many people think the chance of predicting right is 50-50. But they do not know the chance of predicting right is 1 by 2 to the power of n. It is 1 by 2 to the power of 20. I think he discovered that later and he backed out. It is not one, but there are hundreds like that. There are scams going on in this country. There is a stupid thing called as midbrain activation, by which they say children can get supernatural powers. Children can see without light falling on the retina. And I challenged them. I said, I will put the blindfold, and if you can see through it, I will give you 5 lakhs. And this challenge happened in Kozhikode in 2015, around 5 years back. And that video is there on YouTube. If you Google midbrain activation exposed, you will find my 1-hour video on that, in which they brought children to be tested and failed miserably. But yet, our parents believe that their children are the most brilliant in the world and their talent has not been recognized. And by doing this stupidity called as midbrain activation, by which they can read blindfolded. Of course, you know very well that they're peeping through the gaps, that they can become super geniuses. So this is the sort of thing that these people exploit. Right now, if you take the situation, if you take the COVID-19 epidemic, you will see hundreds of examples like that. The immunity boosters, the Gomutra, the Chyawanprash. This is simply because our people are gullible, they do not question. When there's an epidemic, it is time for people to make a fast buck out of it. On one hand, you can sell genuine products and make a buck out of it. Masks, sanitizers, ventilators, so-called, these things. On the other hand, we have got the so-called immunity boosters, concoctions, the homeopathic sugar pills, the Chyawanprash. In fact, the Ministry of Ayush has come out with a list of what is to be done. Take arsenicum album 30C 2 times a day, eat Chyawanprash, drink this grandma's soup. And you know something? The Minister for Ayush, when he got corona positive, he did not take any of these concoctions. He got admitted to a proper hospital, and when his condition became a little matter for concern, they took the doctors who, not his Ayush quacks, but from All India Institute of Medical Sciences, they took them. Right now, Uma Bharati says that she is positive. Why? She did not drink enough Gomutra, did not take enough Chyawanprash. What did they do with the Home Minister? Nobody questioned these things. And there is no way by which you can boost the immunity, but by infection or by vaccination. Of course, immunity may be low because of certain deficiencies that you can maybe try to set right. But you cannot boost the immunity beyond a certain point, like these people claim. But our people have been trained right from the childhood not to question. Just believe things as they are told to you, do not question. And when a child asks a question, he is just told, shut up, what do you know? And the child becomes so conditioned to such an attitude that it just stops questioning and never asks any question. Follows what the authority says. That authority may be a elected prime minister. That authority may be a local policeman. That authority may be a Baba. It may be an elder person in the family who's probably more ignorant than this person. But just because that person has lived more years on the face of the earth, he thinks that that person is more knowledgeable. So this is the way things go on here. So this is what we are trying to do, make the people ask questions. Godmen are a part of it. Rationalism is not just questioning the Godmen, it is questioning everything, questioning, putting everything to the test of reason before you accept it, as far as possible. Particularly those things which affect you so much. I say, okay, yaar, if you want to do a prayer, you do it. But if you are ill, take treatment. Go to a proper place where there is treatment and then do your prayer. Do not substitute your treatment by prayer. This excellent piece of advice, of course, I have been giving it long. You will not believe where it was told. I was giving a program for trainee priests and nuns in a college specifically for that purpose in Bangalore. Imagine priests and nuns, Catholics. The director had invited me. He said, put some sense into the minds of these people. So I started my talk with, see, you are trained to be priests and nuns. You are not going to show the pathway to heaven to anybody. But at the best, you can be a friend, philosopher, and guide to people who are accidentally born in the religion which you preach. So I started my talk with that. Then I went on with all this thing. And when it came to question and answers, somebody asked about the powers of prayer. I said, if the prayer had powers, the churches would not run hospitals. When your priest gets sick, you would pray for them and not take them to hospital. You know, the director of that college who had invited me, he got up and said, well, Narendra here has got a very good message. If you want to pray, you go to the church. If you want treatment, go to the hospital. Do not go to the hospital to pray. Do not go to the church for treatment. And that too, coming from an ordained priest. So this is the sort of separation that I want. If you want to pray, you pray. I do not pray because I do think that prayers are absolutely useless. But if you think that by some prayer you can get some peace of mind, go ahead and do it. If you think that the soul of your departed can be sent to heaven by some puja, you do it. But I do not believe in that. I never do it. I do not think that religion will sanctify anything. I will not believe it, but I have not had a single religious ceremony performed on me so far. And I'm 70 years of age. My marriage, they said, let's see how you will pass your exams, PG. I came first in the university. I said, how did you manage that? I said, God was not my examiner. Examiners were people who ask questions and answer them. Then they said, let us see how we will get married. Without horoscope, without any religious ceremony. I did that. Then they said, let us see what you will do when your parents die. My mother died, I did not send her to heaven. My father died, I did not send him to heaven. They said, well, let us see what you will happen when you die. I said, what will happen when I die? I die, that's all. What will happen to you? I said, nothing. But I know what will happen to me when I die. So how do you know? I already donated my body to the medical college here. It will go there, that's all. Unless somebody finishes me off. Because, that threat is there, that we rationalists, they are trying to, and I am the president, national president, so naturally I am very high on the target list. And there is a policeman sitting below. 24 hours there is a policeman with a weapon sitting to guard me. Because there are threats to my life. I said, if somebody finishes off me like that, then my body will not go to medical college. Because after a postmortem examination, we'll have to cremate only, and that will be done in an electric crematorium without a religious ceremony. So that's it. So it is the fear of the unknown, the ego, the Homo sapiens that makes us think that there is a supernatural power and we have to believe in it. Right.
are your views on the increasing attack on rationalists?
Part of life. Attacks on me have been happening since long. But this sort of systematic planned attacks are something very new. See, they finished off Narendra Dhabolkar. It was in 2013. We were having a national level workshop in Bangalore when it happened. There were about 60 people who had come from all over India, and it was a national level advanced workshop. And I was the person in charge. And we came to know that Narendra Dhabolkar was killed. And the news went that Narendra is shot and killed. And my wife started getting phone calls. Because at that time, I was the more better known Narendra, the rationalist. They thought that Narendra Naik Dhabolkar is my name. But later on, they came to know that it is Narendra Dhabolkar is another individual. Then, Ansare, Kalburgi, Gauri Lankesh. Gauri Lankesh was finished. Gauri Lankesh was not a rationalist. So not in the movement. Out of the people in the movement, it is only Narendra Dhabolkar who was exclusively in the movement. Kalburgi was not, but we have shared platform many times. But Gauri Lankesh was the person who proposed that an anti-superstition act, what we call as anti-black magic act, should be enacted for Karnataka. We were the two people who proposed it. On the next day, Dhabolkar was killed. We had a protest meeting outside the venue where we were having our program. And there we put forward this demand that this act had been brought as an ordinance in Maharashtra. We said this should be brought in Karnataka too. Kalburgi was the person who presided over the function for releasing the drafts of the two drafts were made for this act. He was killed. Ansare was killed for some other reasons because he wrote about Shivaji. Before Gauri Lankesh, an attempt was made on me in March. She was killed in September. And this lady calls me and tells me, be careful, yaar, why are you doing like this? At that time, I had a guard only during the daytime. During the night, that guard used to go home. So in the morning, I used to just go away to the swimming pool fast and thinking that nobody will see me. But at that time itself, they tried to attack me. And then when this news came out, the commissioner of police said, you are not to be trusted. So henceforward, there will be two guards for you, one in the day and one in the night. So that's what happened after that. That was in 2017. And this very lady who had called me and said, be careful, yaar, why are you acting like this? On the 5th of September, Gauri Lankesh is finished. They had made a hit list. In fact, when they investigated the murder of Gauri Lankesh, the hit list came of 20 people. My name was not in that. So I was very happy. I said, now my name is not in that. So no more problems. They'll take away the police bodyguard and all. But it turned out that it was a wish list. It was waiting list. There was a confirmed list. 4 of us. Girish Karnad, K.S. Bhagwan, yours truly, and one more. One Swami of Nidumamidi Mutt. Though he was a Swami, he was very progressive. Here was this confirmed list. And they'd even assigned who is to kill me. And for 4 days I was being followed. Even that is there as a part of the Gauri Lankesh charge sheet. So I survived because of, I should say, my quick reflexes. Because I was on the list before Gauri Lankesh. Gauri Lankesh was not taking any precautions. When she cautioned me, I said, what about you, Gauri? She said something in Kannada that, which translated into Hindi says, ye sab nahi chalega, hamare liye. I didn't understand what it was, but later on I came to know that she did not want security because it will prevent her from interacting with people. So this is the sort of life that we are leading today. But of course, it did not prevent me from going ahead with my activities because we all have to die one day or the other. Better die doing what I want than live under fear. Live not doing what I want. Live being afraid of somebody. I was never scared of any of these attacks. So many have happened even before these things happened. But not this sort of arranged, planned, cold-blooded attack. Anyway, our friends are there in FIRA. We have got around 80 organizations affiliated to us. But of course, I think the president is first on the hit list. Like, because start with the top. When one day it was the, I think 20th year of Narendra Dabalkar's Maharashtra Andhashraddha Nirmulana Samiti. It was in Pune. He had invited me to be a speaker. And when I get down from the bus, Narendra Dabalkar says, "Hi, come, I'll take you to the place where we have arranged your record." Said, "Narendra Dabalkar, your life is under threat and you are supposed to be under police protection." He said, "Yeah, if I take protection, they will kill somebody else. Better they kill me than kill somebody else." And you know, these words were prophetic. You do not believe in prophecies, but they finished him off. He was somewhere down the hierarchy in FIRA, but in his organization, he was at the top. And that was seen as a big threat by something called as Sanatan Samstha, which is there in Goa, who are supposed to be protectors of Hinduism. If this religion needs to be protected from people like us, just imagine what sort of a religion it is. Yes. So that is it. So people can keep on making allegations. We managed to get an act passed for Karnataka, the Prevention of Black Magic and Inhuman Practices Act. But that has not come into effect because of, anyway, so many reasons. It was passed in 2017. Now it is 2020. Yet it has not been implemented. It has got the governor's assent, it has got the president's assent, but yet it is not being implemented because the change of the government. So the lives of nationalists are at risk. But they're not going to scare us. We will go ahead and do what we think is right. That's our attitude.
Right. So I'll come to my last question.
Because...
So please continue. Please continue.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. Instead of dying inch by inch, remaining silent and putting up with all this, better let it be a quick, fast exit. That's what I stand for. I'm not afraid. Right from that time I've been saying. First when Narendra Dabalkar was assassinated, I did not have protection. I got protection only from 2016. From 2013 to 2016, I had no protection, but I was being followed and I was a target, which I did not know. And I think ignorance was bliss. But I think some intelligence report came to the police. And then the commissioner called me and said, "See, I'm going to, there's no specific threat, but I'm going to put a gunman for you. And do not refuse." I did not refuse. That's why probably I'm alive today. Right. The last question, please.
Yes. So what can a common citizen do to fight superstitions of everyday life?
Only one way. Practice rational thinking and observe it in your life. How I manage is only because I'm practicing what I talk about. That is why nobody could do anything to me so far. Otherwise, people will naturally point out to you. See, once in Bihar, somebody asked me, "Aapko mantra mein vishwas hai kya?" I said, "Nahi hai." Then he asked me the next question, "To aapko shaadi pe mantra kyun padhaye gaye?" I said, "Aapko kaise malum? Aap aaye the kya?" He said, "Nahi to, koi mulla aaya tha." I said, "Nahi, koi padri aaya tha." I said, "Nahi." He said, "तो आपकी शादी नहीं हुई है?" I said, "मेरे बीवी से बता के देख कि क्या होगा, वो तो लॉयर है, समझे?" Then I told him, "देखो भाई, शादी के लिए मंत्र की जरूरत नहीं है, एक कानून है जिसको स्पेशल मैरिज एक्ट कहते हैं, and in that you don't require any पंडित, you don't require any मंत्र." He said, "मुझे भरोसा नहीं होता है." I said, "अगली बार जब आता हूँ तो मेरा मैरिज सर्टिफिकेट साथ में लेके आऊंगा, तब आपको भरोसा होगा." So this is what. Somebody asked me in Sri Lanka, in Colombo. She got one of my best replies, I should say, forever. She said, "What is your achievement in life?" I said, "Only two things. I have not bribed any God. I have not bribed any man." So with that, I conclude. Try not to bribe any God. Try not to bribe any man. That is the only way to think rationally. So thank you very much that you gave me
Thank
this
you so much.
opportunity
Thank you.
to express my views.
Thank you.